All right, everyone. Well, welcome back from the summer break. I hope you had an opportunity to enjoy the sun and the fun days of summer. We are back, we are recharged and ready to kick off our fall season of CCI Heronia webinars. Today, we are going to start with a discussion about communication in condo communities. If you've not met me before, I'm Sonja Hodis, your moderator. I'm a condo lawyer. And joining me today on the panel is Patricia Elia, who is also a condo lawyer from Elia Associates, Jennifer Beaver, who is a property manager from CIE Property Management, Debbie Dale, who is a property manager and our chat master from MCRS Property Management, and Sue Langlois from DigiNoticed. So communication, it's something that we do every day. It's a necessity for our condo communities to exist, operate, and thrive. But the real question is, how well do we do it? And can we do it better? What are our limits? What are the consequences of bad communication? These are all questions that we are going to tackle today with our panel of speakers. And starting off, we're going to have the Fab Three, which is Debbie, Jennifer, and Sue, who are going to share some of their thoughts and experiences on how to better communicate with those in our condo communities, whether it be owners, tenants, boards, professionals, and trades. And then towards the end of the webinar, we're going to shift our focus and go into a discussion with Patricia about communication from a governance perspective. And Patricia is going to provide some guidance on how and what to communicate in those difficult situations where it's hard to know what can and can't be said. And to wrap things up, I'm going to highlight some recent cases and lessons to be learned from situations where individuals have decided to engage in bad communication styles. So as you can see, we have a lot to talk about in this hour, and you may have questions. So if you do, put them in the Q&A box, and our panel, we're going to try our very best to get answers to your questions during the webinar. If you want to find out any more information about our panelists and their contact information, Debbie is going to be putting that into the chat box so you can get that information there. And I want to just take this opportunity to thank our panelists for joining me today, but I also want to take this opportunity to thank our sponsors. If you've been at any of our webinars in the past, you know that these webinars are being held free of charge to you due to the generous support of our sponsors. So thank you to Elia Associates, Condominium Lawyers, Pretium Consulting Engineers, and Common Ground Condo Law. Without their support, we're not able to provide these free to you. So if you ever have an opportunity to say thank you to our sponsors, or if you have an opportunity to use their services, you can find out more information about them by going to our website. If you go to our homepage, click on the bottom of the website, you'll see their logos. You can click on their logos. It'll take you directly to their websites, or you can just go to today's event page, click on the logo, and it will take you to their website as well. So thank you again to our sponsors and for their support of the CCI Heronia webinars. Just a reminder, if you're a property manager and you're watching today's webinar live and you want to claim your CMRL CPE credit for this webinar, please put your first, last name, and your company name in the chat box to confirm your attendance. Please don't put it in the Q&A box. Make sure it gets into the chat box. And if you're new to our webinar series and you don't know who CCI is, let me just tell you a little bit about us. We are the Canadian Condominium Institute, and we are an independent nonprofit organization formed in 1982. We have chapters across the country. In Ontario, we have 8 chapters alone, and CCI Heronia is one of the Ontario chapters. Our main objective is education. That's why we do these webinars, but we also advocate for condos, and we represent all those involved in condos, from owners to directors to professionals, and we encourage all these stakeholders to work together. So if you're not a member of CCI, please join, and you can find your local chapter on our national website, cci.ca, or if you'd like to join CCI Heronia, you can just go to our website, cciheronia.com, click on the membership tab, and you can join and pay for membership online. CCI National also has a great resource center, which you can find on their website. You can also find a link to the resource center on the CCI Heronia website. Also, CCI Heronia, we are on Facebook and on Instagram and on LinkedIn. So be sure to check out our social media outlets. And if you want to get access to our newsletter, you can find that on our website. Our newsletter is called Condo Buzz, and a new edition was released just recently. So be sure to check it out. And if you've missed our recordings, any of our recordings in the last couple of years, you can always watch our recordings on our YouTube channel, or you can go to our website, cciheronia.com, and click on the resource content tab. You'll find our past recordings there. Today's webinar is being recorded. It will be posted to our website in the next 7 to 10 days. If you're on our YouTube channel, we're trying to grow that channel, so be sure to subscribe. That way you'll know as soon as the video has been posted. Also, you can always give us a thumbs up or share our videos with anyone that you think may be interested. And just a reminder to everyone, if you are here today as a condo director and you're wanting to use the protection of Section 37 of the Condo Act, be aware that this webinar does not provide you with that protection. You do need to get an opinion about your own facts situation from your own professional. And as well as this webinar is being recorded, all the information in this webinar is current as of September 19th, 2025. Things change. So if you're watching this webinar at a later date, be sure to check with your professionals to make sure the information is still current. And if you're watching out of the province, all references to legislation in this webinar are references to the Ontario Condo Act or other Ontario legislation. All right, so I tried to get through that intro as fast as I could because we have tons to talk about, and I want to start off the discussion with Jennifer. And Jennifer, as a property manager, what are your top 5 tips for communicating with those in our condo communities?
Thanks so much, Sonja. So just to give everybody a bit of an overview, I did try to take this from a perspective of whether you're residing in a townhome community, living in a high-rise community, whether you're a commercial a community, etc. So it should apply to just about everybody. My first tip is use multiple communication channels. So not everyone checks their email or bulletin board regularly. Encourage the use of things like email newsletters or newsletters in general. Maybe they're printed paper copies. Community applications, physical notices in common areas, posted in elevators, bulletin boards, under doors, whatever might work for you. And digital messaging solutions. So those could be things like common area TVs, maybe in the lobby, maybe in the elevator, maybe in a community center, whatever you think will work best for your community specifically. And make sure you tailor your message format to the audience. So I know, for example, we have so many people who just like a short and sweet message with a picture. That works really well for that group. But then we have other residents who love all the details. So try to strike a balance and consider the platform that's appropriate for each style and preference. My second tip is be clear, concise, and transparent. Avoid jargon or overly technical language. Residents really appreciate straightforward and clear updates. They like to know what's going to happen when. So when you have dates and details, include those. What are the expectations? What will happen when? How will it impact them? Honest and transparent explanations for decisions. Of course, without breaching confidentiality, which I know Sonja and Patricia will cover later. But really, it's important that they understand kind of why those decisions were made and how it does impact them or the repairs or their fees or what have you. And this would kind of goes as well to considering how you format the communication. So if you have a rather detailed communication that covers a lot of information and there's specific important things that you really want them to know, consider underlining or bolding those important details or break things out into a bullet point format to help draw the reader's eye to the exact details that you're looking for or you want them to really pay attention to. Encourage two-way communication. Create opportunities for owners or residents to voice their concerns and ask questions. Ideas around this would be host regular town halls and question and answer sessions. Offer one-on-one sessions with the manager. Sometimes having a meeting with a resident can resolve so many things, especially when there might be high tensions or they're frustrated or there's a challenge that they're specifically having. A quick phone call as opposed to another email really does make a big difference. So try to encourage that type of communication within your community. Something that we often use as well is service requests or community portals. Allow for those that reciprocal communication to come back in through your office, through your board, and see what people are really struggling with and respond fairly to those. The other thing is, in terms of response on the two-way communication, make sure you are responding promptly and respectfully to their feedback. It might be something that you consider super silly and ridiculous. How could they even suggest this? I get it, but at the same time, it's what crossed their mind. So respond to them promptly and respectfully to ensure that they feel heard and that consideration's given to their specific request. And I think that kind of goes back to the final thing on this piece is just to make sure that everyone has a response. What I will say is one of the most frustrating things for somebody is when they don't get a response. So please, even if it's let me look into it, I'll get back to you in 24 to 48 hours, whatever that case might be. And you know what? If you miss an email or you miss something, acknowledge it. I'm so sorry I missed that. Let me help you right now, right? Like just we're all human. It's just really important that if something doesn't get responded to in a manner in which the expectation would have been set for, just acknowledge it, be human about it, and respond in that moment. Set Tip 4 would be set communication protocols. I think this is really important, especially when dealing with emergencies or even general communication. But establish guidelines for how and when updates are shared, who communicates what. So, example, a board versus a property manager, or a tenant versus an owner. Emergencies versus non-emergencies. This becomes really important when people are super challenged and, oh my gosh, something's happening. There's water coming from my ceiling. Do they know the right phone number to call? Is that in front of their faces? You could have it in 15 different places and they'll still struggle to find that number. But you should always consider having those important emergency pieces identified in various platforms to ensure that they know where to find things during an emergency. And tips on this would include procedures and would include these procedures in your welcome packets. So all of our communities have welcome packages that they receive. Ensure that your communication protocols are covered in that welcome package so that they know exactly how to reach their property manager, their board, or handle an emergency should one happen with them. And tip 5 is foster a positive and inclusive tone. Even when addressing issues that may be disrespectful and frustrating, maybe you're not receiving respectful tone or communication, it doesn't mean that you can't maintain your professionalism. So I would say that you should always, as a management professional or as a board volunteer, maintain respectful, community-focused communication. So use words like we instead of you. I know that when I say to my son, "Hey, buddy, we could probably do that better. What's a better way to do that versus you did this wrong?" I'm going to have a completely different outcome on that. And I would encourage you to think about that as well with your residents. The way you're addressing things becomes really, really important. Highlight shared goals and benefits, celebrate community wins. So whether there was a successful event, whether you just completed a huge major project and now finally it's going to be quiet in your homes, celebrate it. Just acknowledge it. We're finally finished. Hooray. A little positivity goes a long way in building trust and cooperation within communities. So I do really want to highlight, although it may sound or even feel a bit hokey when I say use positive tones, try it. If you're not doing it already, try it. You'll see that you get a much better response. And that's all from me.
Thanks, Jennifer. And, I like that idea of the communication protocols because it sets and manages expectations. So that's a really great tip. All right. So we're going to now go to a bit of show and tell. And we're really lucky that we have Sue with us today because she's great on showing us better ways to communicate. So, Sue, uh, what would be some great examples of good or bad communication with our members of our community?
Well, thanks everybody for having me here for starters. I'm happy to speak today. Can you see my screen there with the is that shared now?
Yep,
You
you're
can see
good.
that? Okay,
I
great.
think
So these days,
sorry, Sue, I think it might be the wrong screen though. I'm not sure because it's got your notes up as well. I think you want the
Oh,
other
okay, hang
screen
on.
where it plays the full one.
Okay, thank you. There, that's what you like to see. Got that?
Yep, you're good.
Okay, great. So these days, most condo correspondence still looks like the notice on the left. So it's a piece of paper, usually posted on a bulletin board, teeny tiny type, or worse, it's been uploaded to a screen where it's even harder to read because it ends up blurry. So the notice on the right, you can see, is big. You can see what it is about at a glance. The lines are the first one's yellow, then white, then yellow, then white. It makes it easier to read. And ideally, once a day passes, you would change that notice. So you'd remove the old date. So as the days go by, the notice gets shorter and easier to read. Jennifer made a really good point about, sometimes people want all the information. So usually a tag team of you send an email with all the nitty gritty, the teeny tiny type, it goes out by email, but then you'd adapt that for something shorter, whether it's on a bulletin board or an elevator screen or what have you. So the samples that I'm going to show you here today are designed for digital screens, but they can be printed as posters, they can be sent as emails, and they can even be used as a streaming feed for all you townhouses out there. You haven't been forgotten. Okay. Oh. So short and sweet, not too many words. It makes it easy to see what the message is about at a glance. We aim for 4 seconds or less. So literally someone glances at that notice, they can tell exactly what it's about. And if they care, they'll look a little closer to see. So a big part of communicating to residents is to know your audience. Empty nesters are communicated to quite differently from first-time home buyers or even properties that allow Airbnb. If you have a building of executives, they usually can digest a lot of information very quickly, so they may not need so many visuals and editing of words. If English as a second language is a concern, you could address this with less words, more visuals, and keep things very simple on the Flesch-Kincaid scale. That's a tool that you can use in Word and probably some other platforms. But basically, the Flesch-Kincaid scale ranks communication like copy on a grade level. And grade 5 level is ideal for most readers. That's how they absorb the most information and retain it, is if you're writing at a grade 5 level. There's actually someone in the industry who writes at a grade 23 level. I ran his stuff through Flesch-Kincaid scale one time. Not going to say who it is, but that it's very complicated. It's a lot to read and it's a lot to absorb. So you want to keep it as low as possible. Think about your audience, how they see themselves. Are they tech savvy? Is your building a luxury building? Building brands often can offer a clue to how you'd communicate to the residents in it, because oftentimes people buy a property based on what the developer was selling them. So that branding, I don't know where it goes. I don't know if it's, this is a question for the lawyers, is that ever handed over at the turnover meetings? I don't know. But that's something that could be quite handy. You've got logos in there, you've got font types and sizes and styles. So that can help you communicate with what people already bought into. So if they're not handed over at turnover, they should be. Another recommendation to communicate to your residents is to set communication goals. So what do you want to accomplish using good communication? A good idea here is you can look at your budget. So you can sit down and figure out how much you're spending on things and set communication goals on how you can spend less. So this is the best use of communication in my mind. It's data driven. So for example, a goal could be to pass a standard unit bylaw. Maybe you're spending $50,000 a year fixing people's floors because you don't have a standard unit bylaw. You could run a campaign that gets people to commit to that bylaw and save yourselves a lot of money right off the bat. Water is often the biggest spend, and you can save a lot of money if you run a water campaign. Now, by campaign, I'm not saying a one and done. You're not putting up one notice and then that's it, that's all. It's helpful. You could tell people to remind them to just turn off the tap. 200 units do that. while they're brushing their teeth to save a lot of water. But usually a campaign is pretty intensive. It could be up to 30 pieces of creative, telling them what their current usage is, what their current dollar amount is, how much water they use in each, like the bathroom, the laundry room, the shower, the kitchen, that kind of thing. So a campaign is usually pretty intensive. Maybe your goal is to increase compliance. Maybe you've spent too much money cleaning the kitchen stacks or unclogging jammed chutes. These are all things that add up. So if you want to increase compliance, it could be pet messes, balcony trash, you name it. So having a goal and then setting that goal, doing a campaign, and then measuring the results, that's ideal communication in a condo. I've even seen one condo did a pre-authorized payment. They wanted to get everybody going from checks onto PAP, and they ended up, I think they're at 85% now. So it's worked out for them. Sometimes your goal is just to make people happy. This is a Spotlight on Pets campaign where people are invited to share pictures of their pets, and they're posted in the building. And it's amazing the positivity that's created by this. We've seen everything from cats, dogs, birds, a lizard, I think, but everybody laughs, jokes, gets along great. Every time we've run a campaign like this, the manager usually says, "Oh, can you do that again?" Everybody was distracted and busy and having fun. And I like to say, happy resident, happy board president. Let's keep people happy. Sorry, that's it for me on that. I'll stop sharing.
Thanks, Sue. You mentioned, Sue, something about townhouses and that they could do this too in some streaming feed. Can you just elaborate on that a little bit, just so that people are aware that this format's not just for high-rise elevators?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So for townhouses, they think that they're forgotten, but often not. And I think we've been using QR codes for years. So one good thing about COVID is that QR codes became super adopted. So people were using them as menus and everything else. So if you have a QR code and you have a streaming feed, all you need to do is put that QR code. You could put it on a sticker or we put it on a fridge magnet in a home. So literally all they have to do is scan the code and they see what's going on. And we've run these codes in elevators where people have the screens in the elevators and they're still scanning the code and taking it home to look at what's going on. So the stream is an effective way for people. If they want to know what's going on, they literally just have to watch, and it's like watching something in an elevator right on their phone. So it's easy to do.
Great. Technology is great when it actually helps us, right?
That's right.
Okay, so moving from communicating within communities to communicating with boards, we're going to turn the screen over to Debbie Dale. And Debbie, can you share your 5 tips on communicating with boards? You're still muted, Debbie. There you go.
Try that again. Thanks very much, Sonja. Mine's not going to be nearly as much fun and excitement as yours was, Sue. That was excellent. Thank you. So in terms of communicating with boards, the primary point of contact with the board and the most important communication tool, I believe, is the board report, which should be issued to all directors several days before any scheduled board meetings. The board report from management outlines decision requests, which are usually needs for motions, details items that are in progress, and should list off items carried over from the prior board report. So you're going to tell your board at this point what's been completed. Folks, they need to know, if you're a manager, what you've actually done. It's an important piece of the communication that they want to hear, believe me. It's a tracking system for new directions, recommendations for management, and outlines very clearly and concisely for the volunteer directors where the implementation of past board instructions stand. Remember that directors are volunteers. Their time is donated and should be respected as such. Boards want to be supported, not bogged down with inadequate information upon which they're then asked to make sound decisions efficiently. And to communicate efficiently, I would say establish how often a board wants to meet and set up a system of scheduled, AKA predictable updates, plus an annual board meeting calendar. As for management firms that may not have done so, think about setting up your management agreement such that you're billing according to the volume and frequency of board meetings with management. And I say this, folks, not as a revenue-seeking mechanism, although paying fairly for sound management is needed in order to keep sound management in place long-term and avoid manager shuffling, but as a mechanism to drive good board decision processes. I like to encourage the use of a pyramid communication style via email. So the president of the board or another director that the board defines is the top of the pyramid. So if the manager sends an email to the top of the pyramid, usually the president, then the president can poll and communicate with the numerous directors to gain consensus on a board response to come back to the manager. It's helpful to define in the management services contract this pyramid communication platform if you decide you want to use it and be successful with it. I'll explain this as I think it's really a key communication strategy. Email conversations amongst directors wherein they are discussing their views, asking questions of each other, sharing their ideas, debating opinion points, and more can quickly fill the property manager's inbox with what I call an email conversation. The president or top of the communication pyramid should and could gather the various director points and summarize these to the manager in one email. The manager then replies to all the points in that one reply email that may emanate from input from 5, 7, or more directors that they've raised, and it provides the information all at once to everyone through the top of the communication pyramid. Again, this is usually the president. Decisions should be made in duly constituted board meetings, but really often that is not possible as items arise between scheduled meetings. So ratification of between board meeting decisions recorded in the minutes at the next board meeting is a reasonable way to proceed. However, I'd be very cautious on contract decisions or large dollar items outside a formal board meeting environment. Now, I think, really it's key to prepare the volunteer directors for sound decision making. This equates to not only providing, but also explaining at times the multiple quotes, detailing the key resident complaints, and offering resolution ideas, along with defining any positive or negative site and/or community impact from decision-making or lack of decision-making. Good information provided before instruction requests sets the stage for success. All too often, I've seen boards charge ahead with decision processes without understanding or taking advantage of the information set before them. So it's the role of the property manager to provide a solid base for decision through good research, and then to keep referring back to the information provided in the board report and the recommendations of management to foster forward movement. Happy boards I've worked with say they as a matter of fact, they love to see recommendations from their experts, and they don't like to be left to flounder with a volume of information tossed in front of them without an expert recommendation to guide discussion and their decision. Verbal communication also needs some consideration and agreement as to who is available to whom, when, and how in a busy management office, and again, bearing in mind the directors or volunteers. So define when the manager is available for walk-in questions. I suggest an appointments-only boundary applies to directors as well as owners so that the manager can juggle other tasks around 5 or more directors and hundreds of residents who may want or need some one-on-one. I like to keep meetings tight. My board members like to keep meetings tight and rely on calendar invites for organization. A 10-minute meeting really should be plenty if both parties plan for their 10 minutes together. Without planning and scheduling, the property management office can be the stop and chat spot, which is unproductive and a waste of valuable resources that all the owners are funding. And, boards say to me, communications, whether written or verbal, should be professional. Proofread or ask a management team member to give a quick once-over for typos. It's not the dark ages. Use grammar and spell check. And if you're looking for some creative approaches to communicate, here's one for you. Consider ChatGPT as a tool. You can ask for sample notices to owners with a variety of tones, and it's amazing, really, what AI comes up with that each of us will not come up with on our own, as we truly develop rather set communication styles over time, and life is busy. To communicate effectively, use the tools you have. I suggest that tone is key. People say email has no tone. The directors I've communicated with really do feel it has a tone. Think of it this way. People will hear recommendations and offers to think collaboratively, but no one likes to be told what to do, what not to do, or what they did wrong. Consider alternative approaches beyond, here's the rule, you breached it, follow it, or here's the consequences. This is a confrontational communication style. The boards don't like it, the owners don't like it, and while it serves the enforcement purpose, it does not build relationships to foster mutual success. I suggest it creates a backlash environment that can be avoided if we're open-minded and creative with how we communicate with each other. Respectful approaches flow both ways. Be respectful, give respect. Communicate through how we appear. Honestly, I know we've heard it all. Dress for success. You never get a second chance to make a first impression. So when you're chatting with directors, they appreciate a quiet professional meeting environment. They want to be heard. They want an opportunity to talk. They want to hear different perspectives. Managers, we don't live at the property. We have different perspectives than the directors. They need to be listened to and acknowledged. Last of all, I would say you need to know your audience. If there's a lawyer on your board, consider providing some legal framework around your recommendations. If there's an engineer on the board, consider setting up a virtual chat with the corporation's engineer and the director engineer. It doesn't hurt to get people together. When you're unsure, ask questions to drill down into why there is a conflict or if some uncertainty exists. Directors I've talked to, they say really there's almost always a reasonable means to reach consensus through respectful communication, and keep an eye on harassment as part of the logical and essential components of boundary setting amidst effective communications. That is all I've got on that one. Sonja, back to you.
Thanks, Debbie. That's not all. That's a ton. I love that email pyramid idea. I mean, we all want to reduce the amount of emails in our inboxes. So I love that email pyramid idea. Those that need to be part of the conversation are part of it, and those that don't need to be part of the conversation don't get all those emails in their inbox. So great tips. So Sue, back to you, some more show and tell. What are some examples that you have of how we can either better or not doing such a great job on communicating with boards?
So the board of tomorrow likely lives in the building today. So our approach with communicating with the board is kind of like speaking to the future one, especially if you have a good board today and you have a good vibe and they all gel and get along. You want to carry that through. So first of all, we would start with letting people know whenever a position on the board becomes available. So usually pre-AGM, part of the AGM campaign, you let people know when spots are available. Having posters or screens around that remind board directors of what makes a good board director can be very helpful, and can also be a good, I call it a puff-o-meter. So it kind of helps prevent overinflated egos of current board directors. So when there's subtle reminders that direct the condo to, they follow the condo corporation's agenda and not their own. So it kind of helps. That's a bit of communicating with the board of the future to let them know what the expectations will be down the road. Board and residents alike can be educated as they come and go in their business. This is a 52-piece creative series that we have. So literally, it's a weekly dose of information for board directors and residents alike. Board directors are busy people. They take a course to become one, but not everybody knows everything that you need to know. So if you can get information like this out on the regular and not rely on people to have to go search for it online, this is an easy way for people to absorb information. And just to note, we learned ourselves from our own content. This is called Condo 101, which doesn't resonate so much. We actually changed the name of it to Condo Basics because we realized Condo 101, it doesn't always resonate with every audience. So we're learning from our own advice sometimes. So this isn't exactly communicating with the board, but it's board communications out to the residents. So letting people know that the board's getting good stuff done and they're actively involved. They do get a lot of stuff done. They meet once a month. There's a flurry of emails back and forth. Hopefully they're using Debbie's recommendation of the pyramid email, but who knows? But boards who let people know, hey, there's a town hall. We're going to meet up with you. Here's the budget package. It's ready. Or my favorite is the to-do or done list. So every meeting, if somebody jots down, if communication is on your agenda, you can jot something down of what's getting done. And those big green check marks, whether they're on a digital screen or on a big poster somewhere in your building or an email, those are like a visual shot of dopamine, I think. So those are really important to keep those big green check marks, because if they see nothing else, they see board's done list check marks, they don't have to read anything else. It sends a message that the board is getting things done. And last but not least, sometimes failing to budget for communication is part of the problem. So communicating to boards the importance of communication and how it can help cut costs and prevent expensive issues is key. And it's good to know, I think, that managers and boards have very different communication goals. So managers want to lighten the load. There's a shortage. They're very busy, to press for time. They want to spend less time explaining the same things over and over. They want to get home at a decent hour. Boards generally with communication, they want to improve the bottom line. They want to know that what they're doing is saving water. And listen, a campaign can save you 13% of your water bill if you do it right. So that's usually the board's issue, and they want to prevent falling into the reactive condo trap is what I call it. So it's really important to take communication seriously, and at the very least, get it on the agenda. There should be communication goals.
Thanks, Sue. You and I, with Patricia, we've done these seminars in the past, and we always talk about communication saves you money. Good communication saves you money. Bad communication costs you money. So there's another example. But I really like the done list, because usually we're always trying to solve problems. So there's always a negative tone to the communication. I love that positive. This is what we've accomplished.
Yeah,
so,
and it prevents crickets and the what do you call it? The rumor mill. Like, people don't hear what's going on. Their imaginations go crazy, and
yeah,
then lots of bad things that can happen.
Great ideas. Okay, moving on. We're really getting through our time. We've still got lots to talk about. So Jennifer, quickly, what are some tips for communicating with professionals?
Yeah, thank you, Sonja. So when communicating with professionals, what I really try to do is think about what goes wrong when we don't communicate well with professionals. So it results in increased invoicing because it's more time for the professional in order to be able to resolve the corporation's problem. It increases the turnaround time, so it could create a longer lag in what needs to happen. And also sometimes it can lead to incorrect or not full decisions and directions to the board. So it's really important. So with that in mind, what I kind of came up with was be professional and respectful. So back to that tone and that communication. Remember that I think about 50% of our audience today are property managers or administrators. Remember, you're professionals too. So keep your professionalism high and make sure that you're being very professional and respectful with with the professionals that you're engaging on behalf of your corporation. Provide clear and actionable information. So whatever background you have, whatever timelines, whatever details, causes, etc., that you have available, provide all of it. Don't leave anything out. Leaving something out could lead a lawyer down a path that's completely incorrect. And had they had that one email that you left out, they would have chosen a completely different direction. So keep in mind that the information you provide must be clear, concise, and complete. Establish communication protocols from the beginning. So if you're working with a professional that you've never worked with before, let's keep the communication protocols understood. So if I've never worked with a professional before, I'm going to ask them what their preferred method is. Some of them prefer to just have a quick call, understand everything. Maybe they want like a bulk file from the beginning, and then they just want to have a touch point calls. Other people only want to work on emails. Some people have preferences towards text. Whatever that might be, let's just make sure that we are establishing those communication protocols and timelines. When do you need something back? When is your scheduled board meeting? When does the board want an answer on this? When can they provide an answer on this? Come up with a collaborative timeline. And then ensure that you pay attention and document everything as well. In your interaction, make sure you're holding all the information because you do need to come back to your board of directors and provide them with a concise report and follow up from that professional. And then as well, that goes back to everything, but foster a collaborative mindset. Check in with them. Do you have everything? Is there anything more I can provide? Have you thought of this? Would this work? Like, allow yourself to be a professional as well and work with them collaboratively. And that's all for me. I went quick and fast for you, Sonja.
Thanks, Thanks, Jennifer. I see the time is clicking. Okay, Debbie, quickly, what are your tips for communicating with the trades?
Tips. Okay. Trades. Be quick. I can do it. No problem. I would say, I talked to a bunch of trades and I said, I'm doing this little webinar. What do you need to know? What do you want to know? And really the big thing was they want to know when they're starting a project, how to stay out of trouble. So if we drill down into that, it comes down to telling the trades what they need to know and what they need to be aware of at each particular property. And they like it in writing. So all the trades I talked to said, you know what, Debbie, when we go onto your sites, we're provided with this property-specific construction and renovation guideline. And it's several pages from you or one of your property managers, and it's one's for Bay Hill, one's for Granite Trail. Every property has its own, and it tells us what we can do, what we can't do, what we should do, what we shouldn't do. It tells us the hours of work. It tells us what insurance we have to give and to whom before we start a project. It gives us all the guidelines we need to work successfully at that particular property. And as a trade, and I'm talking construction trades only here, as a construction trade coming onto the property, this is what we want to know. This is what we need to know. We don't want to come into the building and get into trouble. We don't want to go into people's homes and annoy Mrs. Jones and knock over her cactus because nobody's told her to move her stuff out of her way. We don't want to create chaos. We like to work in condos, but we like to work in condos where people are happy that we are there. So if you folks would tell us what it is you want, need, and expect from us before we come to the property by a renovation and construction guideline document, we would appreciate that. And our workers, we tell them to read stuff. They don't always read stuff. If you were to have our workers sign a copy of this when they land at your security desk to get their fob for the day, our workers read, sign. If you give them something to read, they don't look at it. If they have to sign it, they're going to read it. Give us a hand, give us a renovation and construction guideline document that we can follow. And I hope that is short and sweet enough for you, Sonja. Back to you.
Thanks, Debbie. As always, to the point. Thanks a lot. Sue, what are some examples of how we can communicate with trades and maybe incorporate some of what Debbie was talking about?
Yeah, I'm going to be really fast here. I'll be 1 minute. So if you think beyond screens or emails, a big poster at your front door can help with that. So, and what Debbie had mentioned, letting people know, move your stuff, that can all go up as the items are being done, like fan coil, dusting and whatnot, or taking care of that sort of stuff. You let people know in advance. But this is stuff for the contractors themselves. You can put that right at the front door. The QR code could be scanned if you have new rules. Renovation debris, let them know that. And you could even think about, if there's renovators in the building, print that poster, put it on a vinyl reusable poster that when a renovator goes in, they know to get their garbage out of there. They can't leave the garbage on the site. They have to take it off site. So put that poster right there and then take it back. When the renovation is done, you can take it back. And then I think I'm supposed to go very quickly through some faves and then I'm done.
We're going to save that. We're going to save those faves to the end.
Oh, we are? Okay.
Yeah.
So
let's hold off on that. We got some other stuff we got to get through first.
Okay.
All
No
right.
worries.
If you guys want to see Sue's faves, you got to hold on to the end. All right. So, Patricia is going to start talking about some governance related communication issues, but I just want to thank Debbie, Sue, and Jennifer for all those great tips. We got some great comments in the chat and in the Q&A box about those. But now we're going to sort of shift focus and we're bringing the lawyers in. So Patricia, from a governance perspective, what are some things that you can share in terms of tips of, we get into situations where boards and property managers, we don't know what we can say, how much we can we say it? So what are some tips that you can leave our audience with today?
Thanks very much, Sonja. I think it's really important to add to that list is how you say it, especially when it's coming from legal and talking about, really the legislative framework that we have around us. At the outset, the Condominium Act, when I was preparing for this, I realized how far we go under the Act to keep owners informed on a timely basis and provide them with transparency. And we provide as well a lot of corporate records that are and take care of a lot of corporate records. So there is a lot of data, a lot of information, and there is a lot of communication through annual filings and various different communications from the corporation. But when we're actually managing, and Debbie alluded to one of my favorites, is today's reality is that a lot of us as board members email back and forth and have a lot of discussions. And this is something that we have to be very careful about. I think you have to be very thoughtful about what you create as a record and choose to create as a record and what should be shared and what cannot be shared. Sometimes on these email strands, you will get the odd comment from a director that says, "Oh, not her again. She's really not, competent about what she's talking about." Well, that should not be in the record. And so what I'm going to suggest is that you really be proactive on how you manage your email communications. Boards should not and cannot share with unit owners all information at their disposal. There is no obligation on a board to share emails that are sent between board members in relation to discussions about operational matters with unit owners. But I did recently have an interesting question with a property manager who had a records request where the unit owner asked for all of the communication from the board with respect to an issue she had brought to the board. And the question is, Patricia, well, we don't want her to see all of the information that we shared back and forth. And so I gave them a little bit of a solution on that communication, because here's the thing, if your property manager is not in the loop, that may not be a record, but at the same time, I like to have property managers in the loop. So my solution was that the property manager on an issue, after the discussion has happened, sends out a final resolution by separate email to all the board members on the topic, summarizing some of the points of discussion, and then have the board members acknowledge what is their position on this issue for resolution. Then, because that is not a formal board meeting, you then take that resolution and bring it up on the next agenda of the board meeting and have it resolved appropriately. This way, some of the private discussion that happens at our board table, which is an important place for discussion, remains confidential and privileged. And I think we need to always take that into account and look at where these records may show up. Today's boards discuss and consider matters and ask questions before their duly constituted meetings. So please remember, though, as well, that a board meeting is the only place to transact business in the scope of a proper, duly constituted board meeting. Emails do not cut it because emails do not allow for simultaneous communication amongst board members. So we also must make sure that our operating bylaws and our infrastructure and our condo docs actually work for us, that we have good bylaws that actually talk about communication, policies that actually talk about communication, how it will be done, how we are going to set expectations for response times, for example, and what we can and cannot communicate. As well, one of our important platforms in communicating is at the AGM. Here, I think one of the key things we talked about as a group is how do we communicate with owners at AGMs when it involves legal issues? Well, that's a very delicate thing. I would say communicate carefully, think ahead. Think at an AGM, how are we going to address that unit owner that stands up and says, I think that this is a human rights issue and I am the victim of it. Well, you need to be able to have either counsel there to help you or be able to deflect that issue to a more appropriate time. Because here's the thing, sometimes unit owners do that at AGMs. I've had them do that. And what I find is that they're prejudicing their own position. I actually asked them to not talk about this right now, that on my ability to respond to this, it's not the appropriate time and place because it's a confidential issue. And also, when I see a unit owner start to defame the board, I also communicate with them and I say, you need to be very cautious at this point to protect yourself. Not because of the defamation or the comments or that could be perceived as defamatory at the meeting. I actually tell them to take a step back. And I think that's what we need to do. We need to also, when we are chairing those meetings, think about how we are going to organize communication. We're going to say at the outset, we will not be discussing about unit specific issues. If you have a concern, please speak to property management who are here and they can take note of that. Because going down a path of these interactions, one-to-one dialogues with the unit owners is not what the AGM, for example, is for. Keep everything general and specific and not specific to one unit. If a unit owner breaches their own confidentiality, I will try to let them know that they're doing that and that it wouldn't be in their best interest to pursue that position. You know, sometimes you can help facilitate the communication at the AGM so that it's a good quality AGM. You know, and sometimes people at AGMs often want to know who's the party that's causing us so much trouble. I don't get into those kind of discussions at AGMs. I like to say, look, folks, we have an agenda. Let's stick to the agenda and let's keep everything at a clear level for communication. Some people try to provoke even the chair or the board to talking about and gossiping about issues. Take the high road. Don't do it. It's in the minutes and it could cause further problems. So how you communicate, what you communicate at an AGM is very important. As well, you know, the another issue that comes up is when we have board members that have conflicts and how to deal with those conflicts. First, have people declare conflicts. And I know under Section 40 and 41 of the Act, it's pretty narrow. And Sonja, I'm going to wrap up really quickly because I'm looking at the time too. What I'd like you to do is really think about what the legal consequences are of dealing with something that has even a perception of conflict that may be outside the Act. Get some legal advice on how to deal with it. But what you can do is create a bylaw that helps you manage conflict and expand the definition of conflict beyond the Act and actually make it clear when people have to step out of the room and why they have to step out of the room. I'm not going to talk too much about committees. I just tell you that committees do not control the board. The board controls the committee. Committees sit at the pleasure of the board. They should have a set of circumstances in which they are to engage, and they should know the scope and nature of the work and that they always report back to the board. The board makes the final decision. So Sonja, that was a little bit all over the place on governance, but that's all the baskets that cover a lot of communication issues. Back to you.
Thanks, Patricia. There's a lot to cover. This topic, I mean, it's a big topic and we're trying to squeeze it into an hour. So I know we're all doing our best and I really appreciate it. Just to let everyone know, we're approaching the 1 o'clock mark. We're going to run over. And if you have to leave, we understand, go ahead. If you want to stick around, we'll be probably another 5 to 10 minutes. And if you want to see Sue's favorite images, you're going to have to stick around to the end because you're not going to see that unless you stick around. So if you can't stick around and you got to go, there's going to be a recording of today's webinar. You can always watch it at a later date and see Sue's favorites then. So thanks, Patricia. I'm going to just have a couple comments about communication and bad communication. Because we've had a couple cases this year that have dealt with it either at the CAT or at the Superior Court of Justice. And we've had comments from CAT members and from from the courts, from judges themselves about communication and what is and is not going to be tolerated and what they can and can't do. So the first case I wanted to talk about is a CAT case from April of 2025. It is TSCC 2510 versus Sharma. And this was a case involving a board member, Mr. Sharma, who the corporation was alleging was engaging in harassing conduct. The CAT found that he was violating the governing documents and the rules. With respect to harassment, the condo had a specific rule. Many of you probably have a very similar rule, something along the lines of no one shall injure, harass, threaten, annoy, or initiate any defamatory, threatening, hateful, or discriminatory statements or actions, or participate in any illegal or harmful conduct toward any owner, resident, guest, contractor, board member, manager, or a corporation representative. So a very common rule that many corporations have. His actions led to the resignation of property management, which raises, another whole issue about communication and the Occupational Health and Safety Act, which we're not going to have time to get into. This individual board member was abusive at meetings through the way he communicated, yelling, passive aggressive remarks. He, refused to leave management office. He would attend management office and make disparaging and aggressive remarks there. He basically created a very toxic, hostile, and disruptive environment, not only for the manager as a work environment, but for the board as well. At the end of the day, the CAT did find that his behavior, the way he communicated, was harassment, was an annoyance, was disruptive. They referenced his repeated emails, multiple complaints to the CMAO, over talking others at board meetings, and they upheld that he breached the rules. But what was interesting is the orders that the corporation sought were basically, you must not do this, you must not do that kind of situation. The CAT was very reluctant to order those as the condo requested it. And one of the interesting comments that they made, instead of having an order that says you shall cease all harassing, annoying, or disturbing conduct, which is a very broad order, they suggested that the board and encouraged the board to consider options that might assist in self-governance. For example, nominate a board member to act as the sole liaison between the board and management outside of board meetings. That's sort of like Debbie's email pyramid. The board might attempt to control board meetings and conduct those meetings generally by developing and publishing a code of board conduct. And they suggested that that be enacted in a bylaw as a criteria for qualification of board membership, so that there would be actionable consequences for misconduct. And I know the condo lawyers in this industry have recommended that as well in the past. So this case is interesting because the kind of communication style that Mr. Sharma engaged in obviously was harassing and annoyance and was a breach of the rules. But, in terms of the end result, even having orders that say you shall not do this may not stop that behavior. The CAT kind of recognized that, suggested some other things. Another case is a Superior Court case from May of 2025. It's TSCC 1644 and Zoo. And this was an application by the Condo Corp for breach of Section 117 of the Act. Unlike the CAT case where the condo only got $200, the court case awarded full indemnity costs, thank goodness, of over $26,000. And hopefully the CAT maybe pays attention to the decisions on costs that we see in the Superior Court cases, because that's something that definitely needs to get changed. But that's a side note comment on my part. Back to this case. Again, this is a director who was also an owner of a unit, and he went on this campaign of harassment of board, management, security, harassed board members. And at the end of the day, the communication strategy of this particular person, the court said, no, you can't engage in this type of strategy. One of the things that was very helpful in this case is like all this was captured on video surveillance. So, we've talked about video surveillance in previous webinars. There's nothing that can beat evidence when you actually have something recorded. So, condo corporations, I know there's a cost to video surveillance, but having video surveillance in common areas can definitely be very helpful in dealing with these types of situations because it takes out the he said, she said nature of evidence, and it lets the decision maker actually see what's happening. Obviously, as you know, always happens, the lawyer sends a letter, tells the owner to stop this type of behavior. The owner continues, they go to court, and the court confirms that the owner's actions are part of Section 117(1). They're harassment, they're causing psychological harm to individuals. And the court acknowledges, and this is the takeaway that I wanted to leave you guys with in this case, they acknowledge that while the owner may have had a legitimate complaint about the condo corporation, it's the manner in which he was communicating those complaints that got him in trouble. So here's bad communication strategy, ends up costing this owner $26,000. The court said there is no basis for the pattern of harassing, bullying, and threatening behavior against various board members to justify any complaints that they may have. And I also just want to set out as a reminder that this goes both ways because as board property managers, you need to be aware of this as well because you may have a legitimate complaint against an owner or a tenant or someone on the property that's not acting properly. And Jennifer talked about this in terms of being professional, watching your tone. Even if you have a grievance against a specific owner because they're just the pain in the butt, be very careful about how you communicate and watch your communication strategy. And then finally, the last case I wanted to talk about is Peel Condo Corp 96 and Lazuzzi, which is from June of 2025. And again, this is the court recognizing that an owner may have a complaint, a valid complaint, but the manner by which they go ahead and express those complaints could get them in trouble. And it's going to get them in trouble if they are abusive, if they are harassing, if they are making threats, if they're intimidating. So just like what we learned when we were kids, it's not what you say necessarily, it's how you say it. That is the big takeaway here. And some of our other panelists today have also, gotten that message across is be careful how you talk. If you're in a situation where things are heated, things are becoming personal, step back. Maybe have someone else do the communication so that they have that fresh third perspective. They're not the brunt of what's happening because you're going to react from emotion, and that's never a great communication strategy. So at the end of the day, these cases, they're important lessons about how we definitely need to really think about how we communicate and the manner in which we are communicating, and not just what we're saying, but how we're saying it. And with that, I'm going to wrap up, except for Sue. Everybody has been waiting for your favorite. So do you want to share your favorite visual examples of how we can communicate better in our communities?
Sure. These are just a few. Oh, looks like it's taking a bit to load. Hang on. Can I refresh this? Hang on. Uh-oh.
One image did pop up, so I wonder if you just try again and just let it kind of load.
Yeah, I just refreshed, so let's see if this works. Sorry, I thought I was ready. There's another communication tip. Be ready.
You know what, Sue, I can bring it up. I have a PDF of it.
Can you? Yeah,
just,
those last ones?
Yeah, I'll bring it up and then people can see it. Let me just.
So while we're waiting, can I just add a comment? One thing to think about in the corporate governance side is the communication point. If you sometimes have just the president under the bylaws, and what we're starting to see is that it might be good to have more than one officer designated as a communication point for professionals so that there's not an isolation of communication with one member of the board that may not be shared. Because remember, even if you get instructions from one officer of the board, it's really that the board has instructed that and it needs to be done by resolution.
Thanks,
there you are.
Patricia.
You're up to the screen.
Okay, Sue, I think those are the slides you wanted, right?
Yep, thanks. Thank you very much. Okay, so first of all, this one is the noise campaign, and I chose this one because I love it. It usually makes people laugh, and noise is such a common issue in so many condos. It just seems like, and sometimes it's engineering, it's mechanical. There's things that you can't do, but in a lot of cases, it's just people talking too loud. So usually in the summertime, when people are out in their balconies, we'll run a noise campaign for our clients, and it's just a funny way to get people thinking. Like even the doctor one, I think that's probably my favorite. People, oh yeah, so your noise kept the doctor up who's operating on your, your your best friend's mother or something like that. It's just a different perspective to get people thinking instead of just, oh, don't make noise, So anything that gets people thinking. And then next, there's a few here I have. These were a little avant-garde and probably a bit ahead of their time. The one on the left, we made the screen look like a magazine cover, with the theme being they were having a major problem with people jamming the chutes all the time. So we did the chute issue. So literally people got in the elevator and they saw that and were like, what's this? Looks like a magazine, but all the little topics that are written there are like little clues to, hey, this is the top 3 things we jammed our chute with. Stuff like that raised awareness about the chute problem and helped with it. Same thing with the black hole, like letting people know. And then the middle one got a huge reaction because this corporation had people speeding around in their garage all the time, and they actually laughed. They got a lot of feedback from people going, oh, that's so funny, and they were guilty and they slowed down. And next, this is the famous shame campaign. I always show this, and it's funny because we only ran it, I think, one time in a building when we first developed this for 3 days. So in 3 days, we posted it, ran it for 3 days. The people in the building, a lot of renters, so the board was skeptical, thinking, no, renters aren't going to care. I'm like, no, there's pride of home. It's not pride of ownership. There's pride of home. So sure enough, we ran this. People went nuts. They're like, that's not us. Nobody wanted to identify with that kind of behavior, throwing cigarettes and bottles and diapers off of the balcony. And within 3 days, they had solved the problem. So, and then we ran a backup that let them know, congratulations, you guys tidied up. This I included because it is a little campaign that maybe if it was running somewhere, you have to be kind of careful with these ones, I think. But just given the cases that Sonja was just talking about, I included them because it's maybe a more thoughtful way or a more creative way than just putting the stick man with the big red circle that we all see at the bank nowadays. We will not deal with people who are mean to us. It's like, get them thinking, And last but not least, this one I just made recently and posted it on LinkedIn because someone was complaining about being harassed. And I posted it on LinkedIn and it went nuts. I got more feedback, I think, on this one post than I have on anything else on LinkedIn. So, feel free to let me know what you think. And even men were jumping in going, yeah, okay, they're not getting called sweetheart, but they're getting called things and people cracking off that they didn't appreciate either. So I thought, that was a bit eye-opening. So I included that as well. So, and that's it.
All right. Thanks, Sue. And thank you to all of our panelists for joining us today. This was a great webinar and some great advice and tips. So I hope all of you enjoyed it. Before we leave, though, I do want to take an opportunity to also thank our sponsors. And without the support of our sponsors, we are not able to put on these webinars free of charge. So thank you again to our sponsors. We have Elia Associates, Pretium Consulting Engineers, and Common Ground Condo Law as the sponsors of the webinar series. So thank you again to those sponsors. If you want to find out any more information about them, be sure to check out our website. Right on our landing page at the very bottom are their logos. You can click on them or go to today's event page and click on their logos and find out more about our sponsors. So thank you again to our sponsors. And just a couple housekeeping things to wrap up. Don't forget, we are running our webinar series for the fall. It's on Fridays from 12 to 1. Our next one is on October 17th, where we're going to talk about Mother Nature's lessons. We have one on November 21st. Our topic has not been confirmed yet, but stay tuned. You'll be finding out soon what the topic will be. And December 12th, we are doing our annual and popular case law update, where we are inviting our condo lawyers to join us to give us an update on what the courts, the CAT, and tribunals are saying about condo-related issues. If you've missed any of our webinars in the past, or if you can't catch one of these that are coming up, be sure to always check out our YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe so you know when we post them, or go to our website under past events. under the events tab, and you'll see the past webinars there. Also, if you're looking to complete your certificate program, your director certificate program, we are offering the 104 course, Enforcement Fundamentals, on October 22nd. And on November 19th, we are offering the 106 course, Meeting Fundamentals. They are online. They go from 6:30 to 8. If you want to register for these, you can just go to our website to do so. Also, don't forget, CCI Haronia's AGM is October 1st at 12 p.m. via Zoom. So if you're a member of CCI Haronia, you'll be getting notice about that. If you have any ideas for upcoming topics, or you want to get on our email list, or you have ideas for any of our in-person brunch and learns, please send an email to admin@cciharmonia.com. Tell us what you think, and we'll see if we can incorporate those into future events. And don't forget to check us out on Facebook and on LinkedIn. If you're a property manager, you've got a couple seconds left to put your name and company name in the chat box if you haven't done so, to confirm your attendance today. And if you want to check out some events at some of our other CCI chapters in Ontario, here's a list. CCI Toronto, September 25th, Coffee with the Experts, Accounting Edition. You can go to their website, ccitoronto.org. Golden Horseshoe chapter, September 23rd. They're doing a webinar, Enforcing the Unenforceable. And on October 15th, they have their legal panel lunch and learn. You can go to their website, cci-ghc.ca. Our friends at CCI London are very busy. October 7th, Director Certificate Course 106, Reserve Fund Fundamentals. October 8th is their AGM and Knowledge Circuit with Condo Experts. October 14th, they're doing the Director Course, Meeting Fundamentals. So if you want to register for any of those, go to their website, cci.sw.on.ca. Our friends in Eastern Ontario are doing their conference today. Stay tuned at the next webinar for some other upcoming events over in Ottawa. Our friends at CCI Grand River are having their AGM and Curling Social Night, September 25th. October 17th is their conference. So if you want to register and attend, cci-grc.ca. Our friends in Windsor are having their AGM on September 30th. cci-windsor.ca. And that's it for what's happening across our chapters across Ontario. Lots of things going on at CCI that you can become involved in. So that's a wrap for today. Until next time, I'm Sonja Hodis, and from the entire CCI family to yours, wishing you a great weekend. We hope to see you at our next webinar on October 17th, where we discuss Mother Nature's lessons. And don't forget, CCI is your condo connection. Have a great weekend, everyone.